Good morning and good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to our first webinar about machine-to-machine. My name is Ian Scarrett and I work at the Eclipse Foundation. Today we're really pleased to have Benjamin Cabé from CR Wireless and Arlen from Cirrus Link Solutions to introduce what we in the industry mean by the term machine-to-machine. I think it's a new term for a lot of people, and so we thought it was important to kind of go through and define what we mean by the term. Benjamin and Arlen are some of the key participants in our Eclipse M2M industry working group. They spend a lot of time thinking about how to build applications for M2M and are actively actually building open source software to build solutions for M2M applications and developers. So they're real experts in the industry, so we're lucky to have them speak today. We're also planning another 3 webinars to go into more technical detail about what the Eclipse community is doing about M2M. So I'd encourage you to participate and attend those webinars. However, for now, I'd like to turn it over to Arlen and let him kind of start to introduce what we mean by M2M. So Arlen, over to you.
Thank you, Ian. Hello, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you're at. My name is Arlen with Cirrus Link Solutions, and I'm here to kind of kick off a discussion of what is M2M, and at least from the Eclipse Industry Working Group for M2M. You see on your screens there, there is a term for M2M, technology that supports wired or wireless communications between machines, but I think when that term was coined, Nokia first started the acronym M2M in the late 1990s. And I think with the emergence of smartphones, the emergence of this whole notion of the Internet of Things, M2M is actually changing its definition. So whether we call it M2M, whether we call it the Internet of Things, pervasive computing, scalable edge nodes, smarter planet, I think it's all encapsulated in what the work group is doing within Eclipse, how we're trying to define that, and then how we can get an ecosystem built up to really address, where are we going and what's the technology that we need to be looking for going forward. So in a perfect world, the M2M vision is basically and again, this discussion, we're not changing the fact that we're talking about embedded devices. So the M2M market sector, captures and represents the notion of attempts for everybody to define this and then to bring to market a more capable, configurable, manageable, and a value-add M2M platform in lieu of, the last 35 years of building, quote, embedded systems. So if you look at this slide, the vision is that these devices that we deploy in the field can connect to the Internet of Things. And by doing that, we end up with a much richer ecosystem, a much more capable capability, and not so much for us as individual companies, but for our customers. Because when we go to customers and they own the embedded assets that they put, whether it's logistics or surveillance or industry and energy, they get frustrated in that they can't write applications to take advantage of all of the information that we have flowing in from these devices now. So, in the whole vision of this, we believe that embedded hardware, the capabilities of the embedded microprocessors, they're staying on track with Moore's Law. They're getting more and more capable. They're getting less expensive. They're getting lower power. So how can we harness the capabilities of what we've got from embedded hardware and encapsulate that in tools, in transport protocols, in frameworks that lets us really get closer to the vision of what M2M really is. And taking that, when you get all these devices talking in, we believe that the sum of the parts or the whole is bigger than all the parts, because what we're going to find is as we enable developers to take advantage of this, there's going to be the next killer app for M2M that none of us even realize is there yet. Now, one of the other notions that I've got in the M2M space is that we've pretty much saturated the market when you look at it from a smartphone, tablet, laptop standpoint. The industry is growing. The pundits say 15 to 50 billion devices deployed in the next, by 2020. But what's happened is that the market has switched. They've started looking from where the growth has slowed down in smartphone adoption and tablets and things like that, and they've started looking around at industry. So now, instead of just consumer platforms, we're looking at resource platforms, energy platforms, industrial, building, retail, healthcare, IT network infrastructure, safety and security, just as a few markets of where we're going into. But as we migrate into those markets, all of a sudden we're going to hit barriers that the greenfield adoption of the social networking and the iPhone apps and the Android apps never had to deal with. They had to deal with the conventions of each of the sectors and the protocols that are already there and the existing notions that are already there. So how are we going to deal with this? The reality is that the current state, again, I showed you the vision of where we wanted to be, but the current state of M2M isn't so much the Internet of Things, but it's the Internet of silos. And by that I mean we are, as an industry, deploying devices every day. They're all connected to the Internet, but they're not connected to the Internet of Things. We're taking devices and we're tying those devices to applications that are running in the cloud, and we're calling it M2M, we're calling it the Internet of Things, but we really aren't getting close to the level of scalability and adoption that we need as an industry to actually scale into what the next Internet of Things could actually be. So taking that into consideration, from a Eclipse industry working group for M2M, we've tried to at least classify the problems that we're trying to identify here. So we do realize the market's fragmented. We're not naive in the fact that there are lots of different hardware CPU architectures. There's different software operating systems, software development programming language, software frameworks. There's protocols. As we go in this triangle of opportunity, the lower we get into the opportunity, the more entrenched protocols and data representations that we're going to have to deal with. And that gives us a lack of integration, both from device to device as well as device to enterprise systems. M2M is complex. I just did a TED Talk last week in Boston, and I noted the fact that if by the time you take the layers of complexity to put together a complete end-to-end, end-to-end system, from the hardware design to the CPU architecture to the porting of the operating system to the selection of the programming tools and the framework and the data representation and what security you're going to use, and is it wired infrastructure or wireless or mesh networking, and how are you going to connect it to the cloud and how are you going to connect it to the enterprise. So my notion there was M2M is probably one of the most complex computer engineering exercises around today. And lastly, again, the deeper we get into the opportunity triangle, the more options are closed, and we get into monolithic solutions with fit-for-purpose devices that have been installed for, if not decades, for many, many years. Proprietary development kits, proprietary protocols, and of course, potential vendor lock-in. So trying to, as a working group, identify the problems, the next step is, okay, well, let's identify what could be some of the solutions and how are we going to address those. So in this slide, I believe we've got 6 very important goals as the Internet working group, the industry working group for M2M that we're trying to tackle. As Ian said, we think about these things, we have weekly calls about these things, we put up use cases about these things, and we're trying to grapple with it. We can't say that we have all the answers, but at least we've identified. To me, the number one problem that we've got is decoupling the embedded mentality. And what I mean there is by decoupling producer-consumer implementations. I've been in embedded systems for 34 years, and if I look at my career, about 12, 13 years ago, there was kind of an epiphany that I had that has really stuck with me for the latter part of my career. I was to give a keynote speech about 12 years ago at the IBM announcement of their new pervasive computing, and within that, you know, it's one of your worst nightmares. Is I get into Zurich late, and the marketing manager called me that night. She said, "Arlen, we've looked at all your slides. Everything looks great, but we just need you to add one more slide. We need you to explain the difference between embedded computing and pervasive computing, because if we're moving towards a new platform for embedded, then we have to know where we came from." And okay, that'll be easy. So an hour, 2 hours later, panic is starting to set in, because it suddenly dawned on me that you know, being an embedded for 18 years to that point, I really couldn't tell you the difference between an embedded system, a pervasive system. Hey, you know, it's got a CPU on it, so why should I care? But it dawned on me, and my explanation I came up with is that an embedded system encapsulates process knowledge, but doesn't necessarily convey that process knowledge to the enterprise at large. And that was 12 years ago. Now I could state it doesn't convey that process knowledge to the Internet of Things. Whereas M2M devices need to not only give us the capabilities to encapsulate process knowledge and to implement them in embedded hardware, but be able to convey that information, all of the expertise that that embedded device is gathering. So the example that I give is a real example. Is we had a customer that had a mechanical peanut packaging machine, and they needed to be more competitive in the market. So they go to Joe in Cubicle 6 and they say, "Joe, you're the paradigm expert for peanut packaging machines, so we want you to computerize this machine." So Joe went off, and Joe did a fantastic job in buying a single board computer and doing everything that he needed to do to automate that mechanical machine to where they had a conveyor belt, the sacks moved under the peanut hopper, it blew air in the bag, it opened up, the chute opened, peanuts dropped down, computer weighed each bag. As soon as it was done, it stopped it, moved it, and heat sealed the bag. So they did a fantastic job, and that machine could do 100 times more peanuts per hour, or bags per hour, than it could before. Now, you know, months later, marketing comes back to Joe and says, "Hey, we could sell 10,000 more of these machines to a particular customer, but they want all of the process knowledge in their ERP system." So Joe goes back and says, "I can do that. I'm the expert. I wrote all the embedded software, so therefore I will write a protocol, and I will connect that protocol to an application." And that's the problem, is that anytime we do M2M, our tendency is to take a platform, an embedded platform, and tie it to an application. And at that point in time, we've created an Internet of silos. We haven't created the Internet of Things. So we have to have this mentality of decoupling producers and consumers. The next thing, the success of the Internet of People was driven by HTTP. It's one protocol, it's ubiquitous, everybody knows it. We have to, I think, to be successful in the Internet of Things and M2M, adopt a focused message transport. Notice that I didn't say protocol, a message transport, so that when we deploy M2M machines, we have a common language that everybody knows that these systems are talking. It can't be HTTP. We have too many applications and too many use case scenarios where we need stateful connections, we need lower bandwidth, we need more efficiencies than what we're going to get with HTTP. The working group is working on this. We have some notions there, but it's very important that we get to the adoption of, if not one, very, very narrow range of transport protocols. If I look at the industry, the third thing is, as I mentioned before, why has the iPad taken off? Why has Android taken off? Yeah, the hardware platforms are cool, but it's not the platform. It's the fact that you have app stores, and it's the fact that both Google and Apple have enabled a developer community. And these developers can have a cool idea. They can go download the tools. They can start creating applications. For M2M to be successful, we need to have that same mentality. We need to have the same set of developer tools. And notice, we're not talking just about embedded developers. We're talking about the whole ecosystem. IT architects, application developers, embedded hardware programmers all need to use the same set of tools, or we're not going to get any scale, or we're not going to get any advantage. The fourth thing is we need cost-effective, agile, low-cost hardware, or low-powered hardware. I believe we're there. I think this is a goal, and actually we've got this listed, but the hardware platforms that we have available to us now are very capable. The fifth thing, I've seen so many projects fail not because manufacturers weren't able to deliver proper M2M platforms. The platform was correct, it had the right certifications, it had the right software, it had the right capabilities. It's the fact that once those devices were pushed out into the market, they became hard to deploy. And having them be hard to deploy meant that they had to set up their own servers. Their IT departments weren't familiar with embedded. So I think the advantage here is we can leverage the emergence of cloud platforms to be able to make deployment a lot easier. And if we go back and we adopt a common transport protocol with IT, with a common set of tools, I think this will become very doable. And then lastly, if we take all the 5 ingredients above, then we've enabled developers to scale beyond single solutions for end-to-end platforms, to start actually interconnecting devices to get this notion of the serendipitous data discovery or the emergence of data, and start taking advantage of what we can do with that. So again, from a work group standpoint, we've started to put together use cases and then run those use cases by the tooling and the concepts that we're coming up with. A typical use case here might be in the medical vertical, where we want to take medical devices. And again, medical devices as devices exist today. Are they Internet of Things devices? Are they end-to-end devices? Not really. But with this concept of a medical services gateway, where the data can be acquired from those devices or data can be written to those devices through a common transport protocol, through a common data representation standpoint. Then on the right side here, you can see that mobile applications, maybe cloud services applications in the point of the clinical trials, applications that doctors can use. We've decoupled the implementation of the medical devices from the interesting applications that want to consume that. We realize medicals, it is a tough market. We do have security concerns and all that, and those are being considered within the working group as well. Within logistics, again, the same sort of notion where we take very, very separate end-to-end devices, whether it's RFID tags in a smart container, forklift, the information that you get from RFID readers, and even more complex examples with handheld and wearable devices. And how do those network in and become Internet of Things devices? Again, for the same reasons on the right, for the same reasons in being able to develop interoperable applications, because the embedded RFID reader in and of itself isn't very interesting unless our customers can use the information off of that device. Now, those two use case examples showed examples using gateway devices. And I think from my perspective, a large part of so in the use cases that we've been looking at, again, we're going into an existing market. So the fact of gateway devices is very, very important for M2M. But where we're actually going to is in-device enablement. So gateway devices are interesting, but it's very important for the working group at Eclipse to think about what are we going to do to go all the way to in-device enablement. And in this use case, you can see the ultimate in, as these devices are deployed in different vertical markets, I can have application developers combining all of these interesting M2M platforms into applications that can utilize the data off of all of them. So in summary, this is kind of a summary of, you know, what the Eclipse group is doing, how we're trying to approach this. And then what I'm going to do is hand it off to Benjamin, who's going to go through taking what I've presented as our definition of M2M, and then how we can take that and enable that in frameworks, in transport protocols, and in actual implementations. So Benjamin, I'll hand the presentation over to you.
Thanks much, Arlen. So yeah, as you just said, there are many challenges when it comes to developing an M2M solution. It's a very complex task, and that's actually why about 18 months ago, people from Sierra Wireless, from Eurotech, from IBM, came with the idea of starting working on a common stack, a common software stack, to address the issues of M2M development and provide building blocks to help software developers get started faster and start building M2M solutions more easily. So that's why we came up with the idea of this industry working group, where we actually work on three main topics. First of all, and this is really what you said, all, and it is all about interoperability. When you build an M2M solution, you don't want to rely on a proprietary protocol, and you don't want to bound your solution to a specific server-side solution. You want your software either on the embedded side or on the server side. You want it to be interoperable, so you need to rely on open protocols, do that on open software platforms. And the thing is, there's not that many solutions available to do that. So this is why we came up with the idea of providing open implementation of communication protocols, of embedded development frameworks, and this is what I will talk about in just a few minutes. And it's also, from a tooling perspective, when it comes to developing an M2M solution, the thing is, usually you talk about healthcare, about automation. When people start developing solutions, we do not necessarily talk about skilled embedded developers. We want to provide M2M developers, Internet of Things developers, with tools helping them to really very easily start developing their solution without having to learn complex languages, complex frameworks, and have really good support in terms of tools and plugins inside Eclipse to be able to easily simulate the solutions they are building, to easily interact with the embedded devices they are developing against, and all these tools that you need when you create an M2M solution. And then, of course, because we're talking about an Eclipse initiative, we think it's important to leverage the huge developer community that's available at Eclipse, and provide a common place for all the M2M developers to collaborate with each other and have common M2M tutorials, M2M samples that they can all share and use to actually, not only create their solutions faster, but also we think that's a way to generate more innovation. So this is really the idea of this industry working group. And in terms of software stacks that we want to propose, it's basically in three. You have three main categories. First is working on an ecosystem of open communication protocols. You know, having at Eclipse the open implementation of a handful of protocols that we think are well suited for M2M development, and maintain these implementations at Eclipse, so as everybody can not only reuse the communication libraries that we provide, but also extend them, propose them for maybe different languages. You know, for some embedded platforms, you might want to use Python with us. So that's important to have reference open implementations of protocols well suited for M2M. And that's actually the same from a framework perspective. When you build an M2M solution, there are many things that you need to deal with, like interacting with a GSM modem, for example. So getting access to the cellular network and sending SMSs, etc. You need a common framework to do that. When you talk about M2M, you talk very often about wireless solutions. So wireless solutions, you have you usually want to propose ways to update the software you are reading on your embedded system remotely. So for that, you also need support at the very heart of the framework. And so that's important to provide a common ground for building embedded M2M solutions. And as I said just before, in terms of tools, you really need some good support to interact with your target, to write your application, debug your application, simulate the behavior of an embedded device, of a wireless sensor, and all that kind of stuff. So from a protocol perspective, what we promote and provide at the moment is implementations for the MQTT protocol and the OMADM protocol. We have simulators and tools and client implementations for both of these protocols, and we are looking forward to adding more protocols if the needs be later. And this is these protocols, and actually mainly MQTT, are maintained and are living under the umbrella of the PAHO project. Actually, the three blocks I just shown in the previous slides, these are three Eclipse projects that the industry working group is coordinating. So the first one is PAHO, which is the Eclipse project, where you can find the implementations in C, Java, and Lua for the MQTT protocol. And we also provide, again, to help start it faster, we provide an open and free-to-use implementation of an MQTT broker that you can use to connect, an actual device and start having your M2M application talking to a real server and eventually many devices talking with each other. So that's really the point of the PAHO protocol. And I just mentioned Lua, and I will talk about it a bit more when I will come to this slide, which is about providing a common framework for building M2M applications. As I said, when you are creating a wireless M2M solution, you need to be able to manipulate the sensor that are connected to your embedded device. You need to interact with your wireless modem and all that kind of stuff. For this, you really need a framework to do that. And what we are actually proposing, and that's the goal of the recently proposed Mihini project, is an embedded framework that exposes all the APIs that you need to interact with the hardware, with your cellular network, with the ability to update applications over the air, and all the kind of functionality that you need when you build an M2M solution. We propose this in the Mihini project, which will be actually contributed around the end of the year. And the Mihini project is a software stack that runs on top of Linux and exposes Lua APIs for M2M developers to build their applications. And what is Lua? You may not have heard about Lua. That's a scripting language that's really easy to embed in small constraint target. That's also easy to make it collaborate with existing legacy C applications. And that's a really easy to learn language that we think is very well suited for M2M when actually building an M2M application is more about configuring the behavior of how you want to react when this or that happens or on whatever wireless sensor is connected to your embedded device, and react to this and send and create a connection with a server when whatever condition is met. So that's really the point about Lua. We don't want to give to developers to have them learn C or complex memory management stuff when all they really want to do is talk to the wireless sensors or to the sensors connected to the device and consolidate the data and send the data to a server and be notified maybe when the server will talk to them and we'll have some instructions for the embedded device. So that's really the idea behind pushing Lua inside the Mihini framework. And since it's running on top of Linux, what is interesting is that we can have it running on a very wide range of embedded devices, starting from a cheap development board like the Raspberry Pi, for example, and to whatever wireless router or wireless gateway you want to use. The only requirement is actually Linux, so that's a very portable and easy to embed framework, we think. And then in terms of software that we are actually already delivering are the tools because the M2M developers are not necessarily skilled developers. We want to help them with all the support we can in the IDE, like providing code samples, code generators, code templates that help them get started faster, and also tools to help them monitor what's happening on the wire when, for example, an MQTT communication is done. You might have heard about Wireshark, for example. So we provide tools very similar to Wireshark to monitor communication scenario using either MQTT or OMADM. And we also are looking at providing tools to actually simulate the behavior of an M2M server inside the development environment. So that's most of these pieces are delivered inside and under the umbrella of the Koneki project, which is, the purpose of Koneki is really about providing tools for M2M developers. The first component we worked on is an IDE for the Lua language, Lua development tools that we think is important to help the developers with nice content assistant stuff for building Lua application. This is also Koneki where the tools for OMADM are living as of now. Maybe on the long term we will have them under the PAO project, since PAO is more about protocols. And then in the next releases of Koneki we will work on providing tools to help interact with instances of Mihini running on wireless targets connected to your IDE, and providing code generators for programming against the Mihini framework and stuff like that. So in the end, what we want to provide is, and what we want to have is a really consistent picture where you take, you have the PAO project delivering open source implementations of M2M protocols, and depending on your use case, whether you need to save bandwidth, whether you need to be compliant with a legacy OMADM solution or whatever solution, you pick your open source implementation of a protocol inside the PAO project. you plug this implementation onto the Mihini framework, and then using Mihini, you use the Lua APIs, you build your application, you deal with the interaction with the input-outputs of your system, with all that's needed to manage your application and stuff. And the Mihini framework is providing APIs for the tools to help the developer deploy his application really easily into the runtime, to debug it, and that's really the point of having the three projects, you know, protocols, frameworks, and tools that are all compatible with each other and developed under the governance of the industry working group. So as I mentioned when I started the second half of the presentation, another important aspect of being at Eclipse is that we really want to build a developers community, an M2M developers community. So that's why today I'm very happy to unveil a portal that we created at m2m.eclipse.org to provide a hub for M2M developers, for them to get a clear understanding of what is being developed in the three different projects I mentioned earlier. And on the long term, we want this portal to be used to deliver examples and tutorials and all the information that you need when you have an M2M solution in mind. Where do you get your hardware? Where do you download the tools that you need to get started? Where do you get support, actual support to learn how to use MQTT, how to build an application using Lua? So that's the point of this portal that we are very happy to unveil today. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Just so you know, there are many people working on the industry working group and on the three projects, and we are looking for participations from participation from more people over the months to come. Especially when the framework will be available, we think there will be even more people from the the DIY community looking at us as well. And of course, if you want more information, the M2M portal is the place where you want to be. And if you want to be in touch with the industry working group people, we have a mailing list, and of course you can also reach out to the projects if you need more information regarding MQTT, Lua, the tools, etc. And actually you will also get more information if you follow the webinars that will, then the remaining 3 webinars next week will be a more in-depth analysis of what and how an M2M application usually looks like. And then the week after, you will have a very deep explanation of what the MQTT protocol is and what are the problems this protocol is solving. And then the 4th webinar will be more about using Lua to develop M2M applications and learning how to use the tools that are provided by Koneki. And with this, I thank you for your attention. And as Ian mentioned on the chat, we are looking forward to get your questions. I think we have still a few minutes left to answer your questions. So.
Yep. So certainly, if you have questions, please put them in, and we'll do our best to answer them. Arlen and Benjamin are both available to answer questions. There is a question: when will the webinar be available? We are recording the webinar, so I will send out a link to the recording in the next day or two. Are there any questions? We'll wait a couple of minutes because sometimes there's a bit of a delay on the system. Can I see the references page again? Benjamin, can you back up to to the references page. I think m2m.eclipse.org is a good kind of starting point for a lot of the references. That's going to be our portal for bringing together all the information. But there they are there. Any other questions? How do you see security restrictions between different countries addressed in your working group? Is Arlen or Benjamin?
Yeah, that's a good one. Well, MQTT, I was involved in the development of MQTT, and it's been around, I believe July, it's been around for 14 years. And one of the things that I think the reason it survived so long is that as a message transport, we actually didn't dictate the security of the messaging because we felt that was part of the networking. And indeed, that has shown to be true. So we are looking at security both from an encryption and authentication standpoint for the transport protocols. For HIPAA and medical type applications, those are using, of course, a stronger encryption and authentication than in other applications. But yes, we are looking at those. Fortunately, we have representation, at least right now within the working group, we have representation both for North America and for Europe, probably not so much for the Asia or China markets. But we are within, I know within the frameworks and within the tooling, we've got the ability to create the security that we need both for the messaging as well as for the payloads. Benjamin, you want to comment on that?
Benjamin, do you have anything to add?
I think you pretty much summarized the.
Okay.
No, I think you pretty much summarized the. Yeah.
So let's go to the next question. We are getting some good questions coming in. Are there any deployed applications based on the platform? Can you give any references on that? Do you guys want to take that?
So regarding the Lua framework I mentioned, the thing is, it's actually part of a. That's actually initially a commercial solution from Sierra Wireless. We have on top of our wireless routers, we provide what we call the ADOS application framework, which basically allows any developer to build their own business applications using the very same APIs that will be provided by the Midini framework. So yeah, we already have people building solutions like connecting buses to the internet and having and monitoring the people coming into the bus and scanning their badges and stuff. So this framework is already on the field, and what's developed by the Connected team, the tools are also actually the tools that the ADOS application framework developers use. What's available in Lua development tools, that's on what we used to build the commercial tools, the Sierra commercial tools. And from an MQTT perspective, I think Arlen, you can list the many cases where MQTT is used and Paro is used.
Yeah, MQTT predominantly. IBM has used MQTT, and as I said, it's been it was first deployed 13 years ago. It is in major SCADA systems used for pipeline control systems. It's used for reporting gaming, real-time gaming, winnings and losings from slot machines. It's being used in medical device applications. So, like I said, MQTT has been deployed. It's been probably a very well-kept secret. We were very excited, completely unknown to us as the PAHO team. We were surprised October last year. Facebook pretty much dumped the entire messaging infrastructure they had for Facebook Messenger and started using MQTT for Facebook Messenger. So I'm pleased to announce that there's probably, as we're talking today, about 300 million MQTT connections up and running.
All right, let's go on to some more questions because we're getting quite a few coming in. So, are there device manufacturers like Schneider, Allen Bradley, etc., involved with the M2M work that you're doing? So, Sierra Wireless and Eurotech are two examples of device manufacturers. We're certainly open to having others, but those are the two that are very active right now. Arlen, do you want to add anything, or Benjamin? We'll go on to the next.
Well, there's several device manufacturers, Ian, using MQTT. Those are rather proprietary right now. And then for the overall framework, again, we're just announcing this, so I think you will see a lot of implementations coming forward, the least of which, like Benjamin said, we know that is being used actively in commercial Sierra Wireless products.
Yeah, like I do want to stress that this is very early days for our working group and for the industry. So we're big believers that open standards and open source really drive adoption, and so that's what we're trying to build up here with the working group.
And working code, Ian.
Yeah, for sure. So there's next question. Someone asked kind of a question on fleet domain. I'm not exactly sure, so if you can put a bit of a clarification on that, that'd be great. So I'm going to skip over to the next one. What role does OSGI play in the M2M working group? Arlen, do you want to take that?
Well, actually the Eurotech implementation of framework heavily uses OSGI. We're very aware within the working group of the OSGI framework, and we'll be leveraging that in more of the tooling going forward. For example, like MQTT plugins into the Eclipse IDE, as well as cloud-based server implementations leveraging OSGI. So it's very much on the radar screen. We're very, very cognizant of OSGI and intend to leverage that heavily.
Okay. Going to the next one. Go ahead.
Just compliment from the P&E perspective. I mentioned it's a framework exposing Lua APIs, but it really must be seen as kind of an agent that's dealing with all the device management stuff, abstracting the interactions with the IOs, and what we aim at doing on the long term is providing not only Lua APIs but actually Java APIs, and if possible APIs compatible with the OSGI specification for example for the device management, and really this is a really small C/Lua agent, call it like this if you will, and on top of it we think it's more the first natural step is to provide Lua APIs, but on the long term providing REST APIs on one end, but also whenever possible OSGI bundles that talk directly to the underlying agent. This is really on our plan for the next releases, and we are looking at it as well.
Okay, I'm going to go on to the next one. Is there any other competing stack ecosystems targeting M2M, or is Eclipse in a monopoly situation now? I'll give the flip answer of saying yes, we are the monopoly and the only one, but I'm not sure that's reality. So Arlen and Benjamin, do you guys have some comments there?
Well, this is Arlen. There are at least a dozen, if not more, organizations trying to address M2M. I will have to say I've been in the industry since the inception, and this is the first and the most open consortium. There's a lot of efforts within the semiconductor manufacturers, within the carriers themselves, but I get the feeling there's a lot of analysis paralysis, and that's the comment that I made to you a while ago, Ian. It's what I see with the Eclipse working industry group is that we're actually putting out code that runs today. We are interested in standards, but we're more interested in getting these things deployed.
Okay. Yep. No, I agree. But I think the point is that there's lots of people working in this space. In my opinion, a lot of the telcos are investing quite substantially in this space. But from what I can see is they're not necessarily investing in an open platform. And I think this is where what we're doing on Eclipse is pretty special.
I agree.
Okay, going to the next one. Are there other working groups working on this issue, or is this the working group the only one addressing M2M? So at Eclipse, this is the working group that's addressing M2M, and the way we're structured is that the working group deals with a lot of the architectural requirements type issues, use cases, best practices. The code gets developed in the projects. So there's 3 main projects, Mahini, Paho, and Kaneki, and we expect to see more and more projects come on board, and that's where the code actually gets developed. I think that was the question. We absolutely at Eclipse have other working groups, so I'm not sure if that was where the question was going, but certainly if you wanted more information about the other working groups, feel free, anyone can feel free to drop me an email. My email address is ian@eclipse.org. So I'm just going to go on to the next one. Debugging a new project. What is how do you do that? What's our solution there? So debug, so simulation, sandbox, servers. Benjamin and Arlen, do you want to take that?
Benjamin, I'll let you take that from a tooling standpoint.
Is the question how do you debug an M2M solution?
How do you debug an M2M application? So what's your solution for simulations, sandbox servers, etc.?
So yeah, we really have a different set of tools to do that. So first, when you build an M2M solution, even before writing code, what you usually want, at least sometimes want to start with is starting to talk with an M2M server and see and start communicating and exchanging data with the server. So for that, we have both plugins for both OMADM and MQTT, where you can create communication packets and see what's happening on the wire and what the server is answering to a search packet that you are sending. So as I said, for OMADM, this is in Koneki at the moment. You have a simulator that you can download from the Eclipse marketplace, and you can install and start playing with the OMADM protocol. And from an MQTT perspective, you have the same kind of simulation and same kind of tools delivered by the PAHO project. And then when it comes to developing, when you're kind of happy with the data that you are exchanging between your simulated device and your server, like you are exchanging a temperature or something like that, yeah, and you probably want to really create an application. And for this, you use Koneki and the Lua development tools to develop your application. And we provide ways, or at least when Mihini will be available, we provide a way to deploy, you connect your Raspberry Pi or whatever your embedded device is, you connect it to your computer via USB or Ethernet connection, and then you use the APIs of Mihini to deploy the application on the embedded runtime. And you can also debug the application remotely. We provide a way, if you're familiar with Java or C development in Eclipse, you know that it's possible to develop an application that's running outside your development environment. So that's the same approach with Lua development tools and Mihini. We provide a way to put breakpoints inside your code, and you don't know what's happening when the server is sending a response to your communication. Then you put a breakpoint in the relevant line in your code, and you start debugging this way. So yeah, we have not only ways to debug the actual communications, but also ways to debug the code.
Arlen, do you have anything to add there?
That's the main thing. I mean, we do have, we're going to be contributing some MQTT tooling that will let you simulate hundreds, if not thousands, of MQTT devices. And that's, when people talk to me, that's the next thing, is that simulating one device is cool, but I'm not going to do one device. I'm going to do, 1,000. And so we really realize that's an issue with M2M and are putting out tools to be able to address that as well.
And sorry, I'm not sure if Benjamin mentioned this, but we are hosting a MQTT server at the M2M portal. So if you're building M2M MQTT-based applications and want to test out with a server, we do have one available, a sandbox server. So the last question, and so if anyone else has, we're kind of coming to the end of the hour, but if anyone else has a question, please feel free to enter it. But our last question so far, actually another one coming in, but is what is the best communication media, cellular, LAN, or Wi-Fi for M2M? Arlen, do you want to go with that?
Yes, yes, and yes. I mean, just to put a point on it, MQTT was actually developed for VSAT communications because VSAT 13 years ago was very, very expensive. Having said that, now that we're in the cellular world, it lends itself very, very well to very low data plans on cellular. But having said that, that's why I put that up there, is that M2M crosses all boundaries. So whether it's 802.15.4 mesh networking, Wi-Fi, cellular frame relay, fiber, it doesn't matter. We're going to have to be able to get M2M solutions that basically are agnostic of the network that we're on.
And also I think that's a good kind of link into our next webinar, which is really going to go into a lot of the technical architecture of an M2M applications, what are the implications of choosing different types of setups and architectures. And so we're hosting that next week at the same time. We'll send out a link to register for that too. But I think that's it. There's no more questions. A couple of people have asked again when will the webinar be available? Our recording will be online. Yes, we will. We are recording this, and we will be sending out a link. It will probably take a day or two for the link to get out, but we will send it out to the attendee list. But I'd like to thank Arlen and Benjamin for taking us through this. It's definitely a very exciting space, and I think we're doing some really cool stuff at Eclipse. I certainly welcome everyone to participate either through the mailing list, asking questions on the mailing list, or actually stepping up and starting to actually participate with contributions. There's lots of room for good ideas and, as Arlen says, good source code to actually implement those ideas. Okay, so thank you again. And I hope you can join us next week for the next webinar. And please tell your friends and colleagues about what we're doing. If you do have any questions, feel free to send me an email. My email address is ian@eclipse.org. Thanks again.